happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. It's what Vegas sells. But they're not really prepared for the fallout of that motto.
We got an emergency situation here.
Vegas tends to draw stranger injuries, stranger experiences.
This is a magic trick gone horribly wrong.
If you would have made me a bet that said, TJ, do this naked, I would have done it. It was that easy of a trick for me.
That's when I started to get really afraid.
I was saying to myself, I can't believe I'm gonna die on a cold piece of cement.
People don't lay there and just die. They want to fight.
People come here and end up in our ambulance.
Anybody who comes to our trauma center, they're getting the best last chance that they have on this planet.
Fire medical.
Everybody clear. 911, what is your emergency?
Everyone knows the Vegas Strip with all its glitz and glamour. But one of the wildest spots in Sin City is in the old part of town. Tons of tourists enticed by gambling, G-strings, cheap drinks, and freak shows.
Fremont Street is absolutely chaotic all the time. You have 1,000 people or more passing through those streets. It's a very crazy nightlife. It's absolutely insane.
It's unlike any other place. You've got 4 city blocks of a party going on, so whatever you want, there it is. If you don't like what you see, walk a block away, you'll see something completely different. And that's fun. I've seen a few stories, I can tell you that, but the one with the magician and the nail, it tops it off. It really does.
Gather round. What you're gonna see will astound.
I'm a little bit magician, little bit illusionist, a little bit freak show artist.
It's Friday, a wild night in Vegas like any other.
Feel that, that's sharp, that's real. Careful.
Jesse Casease is a regular on Fremont Street. His nail trick wows the crowds there night after night.
It is one of the most dangerous tricks that I perform other than fire eating.
It's called the Devil's Nail.
You're taking a 6-inch nail and having someone else hide it. I really don't know where that nail is until I turn around.
Are you ready?
Ooh. I had not seen that nail trick before. That's why I was so excited to see it. Like, I was front row. Okay, let's watch this.
Jesse definitely has a flair for the dramatic. I appreciate that one a little more. I like all magic, but he definitely has a style to his own.
Now we're down to 2. The odds are pretty good, right? 50-50?
It's not easy in Vegas, especially, to keep the attention span of, drunk people.
Nice. Bunch of characters in Vegas, am I right?
He works very hard on what he does, and he puts his health on the line a lot for people's entertainment. And sometimes that's not appreciated, and at other times it is.
Actually, this is just luck so far. I mean, I'm gonna step on this one. No, this one.
A lot of people have speculated that I memorize how the cups are placed. That's not it. It's something completely different that I use.
You ready?
Jesse won't reveal his secrets, but what happened on this night is even more of a mystery.
What happened next, I can't really describe it any other way other than excruciating.
1, 2, 3.
Smash! And all he said was, I chose wrong. I couldn't believe it. I was out of my mind, like, oh, he got it wrong.
When it went all the way through my foot, I didn't even feel it because it happened so fast. It was like getting your ears pierced. I stood there for a minute, actually still talking to the audience. I'm a very strange person when it comes to pain. I just enjoy pain. However, this was something that wasn't enjoyable. The moment that I felt the pain was when I stepped back forward and stepped back on it. I don't recommend anyone at home doing it, okay? It was bad. It was bad. It's excruciating having a foreign body that is 6 inches long and literally about as big around as my pinky go through my foot. It was horrible, honestly. It was one of the worst pains I felt in my life. messed up thing about it was the entire audience were thinking it was part of the trick.
Get out of here, all right?
And my buddy came running up. He's one of the pirates out there on Fremont Street. As he goes, guys, we're gonna have to call the show right now.
And the crowd around Jesse, you know, they were trying to get him to pull the nail out of his foot.
That's a little morbid, but I guess they're trying to get their entertainment value as well. But that's Fremont Street. I'm looking around, all the other crowds looking right at him like, ready, game on, the show's just started.
Yank you right out.
And stopped him from pulling this nail out of his foot. That would have been a very bad mistake.
Everything's gonna be all right.
I was just going, okay, there's a nail in my foot, I gotta get it out. I had actually yanked on it 2 or 3 times trying to get it out of my foot, because I didn't really realize at that point in time that it was all the way through and all the way out the top. I had called my wife. Hey, hon, I stepped on the nail. She goes, no, you didn't. Well, honey, I stepped on the nail. It's through my foot right now. I'm going to be going to the hospital. And she goes, okay, I'll be there in a minute. Don't take an ambulance, though. Okay?
Chris disagrees and calls 911.
Fire medical?
Yeah, we got an emergency situation here in front of Binion's on Fremont Street. It was a performance and it went wrong.
We got a call for what came over as a traumatic injury, and he was in a severe amount of pain.
Every paramedic knows Fremont Street well.
There's always crazy people and crazy stories. You are thinking about every scenario in your head, every possibility.
Finding the victim is like looking for a needle in a haystack.
As we're walking through the crowd, we're looking for anybody. We don't know what this gentleman looks like. We don't know exactly how bad the injury is.
Excuse us, excuse us.
We see the crowd a little bit larger in one certain section of Fremont Street, so we start walking towards that.
And there he is, Jesse the magician, with a nail through his foot.
You couldn't see a whole lot. We didn't know how far the nail was in. He was definitely in pain.
It's a roofing nail, whatever the big, thick gauge nails were, you know, like this big and thick, and it did not look like you wanted it in your skin at all.
You could see the nail going through the sole of the boot, into the bottom of his foot, and up through the top of his foot. It's a whole lot worse than what I had originally thought, in that he stepped on that nail pretty hard for it to do that. Talked about his act and how it happened. It was a magic trick that just went terribly wrong.
All right. No.
Jesse didn't want to go at all. His main concern was money. Worried about the ambulance bill, worried about the hospital bill.
And I said, no, I really don't want transport. My wife said that she's gonna bring me there. And they looked at me and they're all, seriously, man, you have like a good football field before you can get to anywhere where someone can pick you up in a car. And the paramedic goes, wait, stop. I want to see this. Stand up.
No.
So I started to stand up, and I got just a little bit of pressure on that foot, and things started going black. I came about that close to passing out. And that's when the paramedic said, listen, man, you can go into serious shock at any time, and shock can kill.
Jesse finally agrees to go with the paramedics.
All right, how much does that hurt, man? Scale of 1 to 10.
12.
He was coherent the whole time. He was talking to me and was in a lot of pain, like anybody would be with a nail through their foot.
Dr. Megan Mercer is on duty at the UMC emergency room.
As Jesse came in, everyone was a little bit in shock when you see that, and you're kind of going, oh my goodness.
The first thing they asked me was, are you in construction? And I said, no, I'm a magician. They said, a why is it that you have a nail through your foot and you're a musician? I said, no, a magician. They're all, oh, okay, so this is a magic trick. I said, yes, gone horribly wrong.
Medical director and surgeon Dr. John Fildes is overseeing Jesse's care.
The nail through the foot is most common among construction workers, and it really was kind of novel to see that it was a magician who came in this time with the nail in the foot.
The ambulance had already given him morphine. We always want to be careful not to give a patient too much pain meds because it can cause you to stop breathing.
The team starts with x-rays. Has the nail caused any major internal damage?
The only real nail injuries that we see tend to be the high-powered nail guns, never anything this large or that extreme. And so this could be a foot or limb-threatening injury. There's that risk of bleeding where you have, we'll say the artery is blocked by that object, and if you pull it out, then it will start bleeding.
Think of it like a can of juice, and you only have one hole in it, and you start pouring. It's a slow flow until you crack open that other, side, and then blub, 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 blub. It's the same thing with your body. If you have a puncture wound that goes all the way through your body, however, you can bleed out in a matter of minutes to hours.
He could have a severe fracture that's difficult to mend. He could be permanently disabled, permanent arthritis. He could have an infection that could get so bad that he could lose his foot. And that could change his whole life.
Jesse now faces the possibility that a simple mistake may cost him his foot.
I was terrified, honestly. I couldn't accept that. I just couldn't accept that.
It's a terrifying moment for Vegas street magician Jesse Casease. If doctors at UMC can't save his foot, his career might be over.
Jesse is very lucky that he didn't hit a bone, that he didn't hit an artery, that his tendons seem to be in place, because those are all things that could cause permanent disability in Jesse.
The x-ray results are the good news. The bad news? Removing a 6-inch nail is no easy task.
It required that we cut away the boot and expose the injury and the foreign body so we could see where the nail entered the foot and exited the foot.
So at this point, we do the lidocaine, which is the numbing medicine for the skin. And lidocaine causes a lot of burning sensation because what it's doing is numbing all the nerves around it. So that's initially painful, having a needle put into your open wound. I made sure to prep Jesse saying, this is gonna burn.
The thing I remember most vividly was feeling that drip through my foot, all the way out the bottom.
The skin was tight around the nail, and we had to use a scalpel actually to make a small skin incision above and below and to open the tract up. And that took the binding force of the skin off the nail.
So the next step for Jesse is the fun part, which was how do we get the nail out? This may hurt. We decided the best case scenario would be to get something that could really grip onto the nail, and those were pliers. All right, now's the time. And so we got a good grip on the nail. 3, 2, 1, and I just pulled downwards with a good amount of force.
It's a craft to take these things out. A lot of times you don't want to wiggle this stuff as you pull it out because it'll hurt the tissues around it. So you want to have an actual straight draw and take it back out the track it entered.
Please come out easily. Please don't cause a lot of pain. You don't want to yank it and then just see it tug and then be like, oh no.
It just started pulling down into my foot.
As it starts to slide out of the foot easily, you just have that sigh of relief of like, whew, this went well. Those are very dirty wounds, and so it's always a high risk of having infection. You can get bacteria in your blood, and that can be life-threatening.
He got some antibiotics. Fortunately, there was very little damage inside the foot itself.
Jesse's foot is saved. The show will go on.
I started showing the entire staff magic tricks. They asked me if I was ever going to do the trick again, and I said yes.
Why would Jesse do this trick again after such an ordeal? According to him, his act was sabotaged.
Sabotage is part of the process here.
Behind the scenes, the competitive nature of Fremont is ferocious. There are spots on the street that are better than others, and these people compete fiercely for it.
Hey, that's my trick.
Earlier that day, Jesse claims a stranger warned him to stop performing the trick.
That's your trick?
He told me that he was basically the creator of this trick and that I wasn't allowed to do it and that I had to stop or he was going to have me arrested. I blew it off. The person that sabotaged me knew how the trick worked.
Jesse says the stranger caused the accident, not him.
The devil's nail itself, I can't tell you how it works because that's part of the mystery behind it. Basically, he made it seem like that nail was underneath another cup.
Are you sure?
He took off. I've never seen him again, and I swear if I ever do see him again, I'm going to take his hat off his shoulders. That hurt.
I didn't think you could bounce back from this kind of situation. He bounced back, surprisingly. He's still doing the act. Wow. I wouldn't do it twice. I'm sorry. If I messed up like that one time, that's it. I'm retiring that act. Goodbye, nail.
I still do have that nail somewhere. I told my wife after I did this that I would never lose that nail because I always wanted to keep it as a reminder to not get cocky with what I do.
The people that come to the trauma center are there because they're at risk of losing life or limb. And in his case, if this had gone badly for him, he would be permanently disabled.
I firmly believe that everything that happens to us happens for a reason. Just like stepping on that nail, it happened for a reason. If I didn't step on that nail when I did, who knows, I could have tried to do something bigger that I wasn't ready for and end up, instead of just in the hospital with a nail through my foot, I could have ended up dead. I wanted to be famous, and I still do. I still want to be a great magician. And if it kills me one day, I will be.
Vegas, the party capital of the world. People come here to gamble, celebrate, and misbehave. And when the NBA comes to Vegas, the temp of Sim City rises to a whole new level.
I've worked in clubs in New York, LA, Vegas. I've never seen anything like this in my life.
They brought in, all the hip-hop stars and all the hotels. We'd never had that kind of a crowd that just was rambunctious and partying from, sun up till sundown, and they were still partying till the next day. It was wild.
The private party at the Minx Gentlemen's Club is no exception.
Everybody in that club was from out of town. Most of the girls were not actual working girls with that club. They were brought in from a promotion company from Houston, Texas. These girls, they were flown in specifically for this weekend.
Music and sports stars have taken over the club. One of the biggest is NFL player Adam Pac-Man Jones. He's flush with cash. He just won big at one of the casinos, and he wants to show off.
They were doing something they call Make It Rain. Making it rain is when you take a wad of $1 bills and you throw them in the air and make it rain money. And the more money you make it rain, the more prestige you have with your entourage.
Thousands of dollars in ones flutter down onto the stage. The situation quickly gets out of control.
There was 2 dancers that got into it over the money. One of the sports celebrities ended up trying to break up that fight. Hey, stop that! And actually ended up battering one of the dancers. And that's when the security guards ended up taking him and trying to throw him out the back door to get him out of the club.
But the party doesn't stop, and the night isn't over yet. It's 5 a.m., and bouncer Tommy Urbanski's day is just beginning. He's 15 minutes early. It's his second week on the job.
I was always raised, you're always 15 minutes early to work or you're late. My job was to pretty much run the whole place, make the registers, make sure the bartenders were doing their jobs, the bouncers were doing their jobs, the girls weren't doing nothing dirty or illegal. There was a lot of girls that came in from Houston that I never worked with before that were fighting in the girls' locker room. So I'd gone into there to try to stop that melee, which was kind of difficult because they didn't know me or who I was, so they weren't respecting my authority. So I got a couple doormen there to break that up.
All in a day's work for Tommy. Nothing he can't handle. Until the night goes horribly wrong.
The night manager asked me to step outside and just keep an eye on the front door for a second. So I was watching across the street and I seen a shadow. Saw a silhouette. It was probably about only 15 feet away. And that's when I looked up and saw the muzzle flash. I didn't have a chance to react, and before I know it, it was on the ground. And I started feeling the warm blood coming out. I just couldn't believe it. I was saying to myself, I can't believe I'm gonna die on a cold piece of cement.
Immediately, someone calls 911.
911 emergency, what's going on there? Hello? Okay, all right, take a deep breath, okay, is anyone around you been shot? Yeah? Okay, come in.
What's going on here?
Police and paramedics race to the shooting at the Minx Gentlemen's Club as 911 calls flood the lines.
Did you hear the shot?
Yes, I did.
Did you see who did it?
No, I mean, it's just chaos out here. There's hundreds of people running everywhere.
You couldn't tell how many people had been actually shot at that point because there were just people that had been stepped on trying to get out of the club.
Police secure the area and paramedics rush to the injured. 3 people have been shot. 44-year-old Tommy, a former pro wrestler, is in the most danger.
Hello, sir. My name is Brian. How are you doing here?
I started talking to him. Hey, what's your name? How old are you? Are you in any pain? Any trouble breathing? And he said in a normal conversational voice, I can't move my legs.
Cody, go get the backboard. Give me the neck brace. Get the last one.
So all I was worried about was talking to my wife one more time at the time. And then I lost consciousness, yeah.
All right. You're gonna be all right, sir. You're gonna be all right. No problem.
He was a big guy, so I looked down, tried to figure out where he shot and why he can't move his legs. It was dark, and you really can't see that well. So we have to cut the clothes off and find out where the holes, so to speak, are.
Tommy has been shot 4 times. They need to get him to the hospital immediately. But first, they have to stabilize him.
All right, does this hurt?
So we put a C-collar around his neck and rolled him onto the backboard. He's a big boy, so it took 4 of us to lift him up onto the gurney.
University Medical Center, the only level 1 trauma center in the state, is 5 miles away.
I have a gunshot wound to the chest and possible spinal injury.
Trauma surgeon Dr. Michael Casey and the team are standing by.
1, 2, 3.
We talk about the golden hour in trauma. Within that hour, things have to be done or people will die.
All right, he's having trouble breathing.
1 bullet grazed his shoulder. 1 hit his left wrist. 1 went through the stomach and out through his chest. And 1 went into his back. Tommy's condition is deteriorating rapidly.
He was having problems with breathing, shortness of breath. The lung had collapsed on the one side.
The air escaping from Tommy's collapsed lung is filling his chest cavity, crushing everything inside it, including his heart. They need to deal with that first, or Tommy will go into cardiac arrest.
So we put a chest tube in to reinflate the lung. It's just a big hose, basically, you stick in the chest, and it reinflates the lung and takes the blood out from around the lung. He was in critical condition. He just was having a bad day. He had a hole, basically in the middle part of his chest, and we didn't know where it had gone through. Bullets, although you expect them to travel straight, don't always travel straight. So when you look at someone shot in the chest, you assume the bullet goes straight through. But a bullet can move when it hits the lung, can hit the heart, can hit the liver, can hit anything. So we started with a chest x-ray and an abdomen x-ray looking for the missile.
The x-ray confirms their worst fears. The damage is extensive.
It wasn't just a puncture in the lung. He actually was bleeding in and around his lung from the bullet. There's this big energy ball around the bullet called a cavitary channel, and that causes bruising and damage to the structures around. It's actually a larger pathway going through the body, and that bleeding made it more difficult for him to continue breathing, so we had to intubate him. We had to put a tube and get him on a ventilator to help him breathe. As you start having problems breathing, you become agitated. People don't lay there and just die. They want to fight. And especially a big guy like this who's used to being in charge, wants to be in charge. And unfortunately, this isn't something he has control of. So we had to put him in a medically induced coma to help us get through the process.
Now, Dr. Casey turns his attention to the bullet.
We got him through the CAT scanner. Then we had an identification of the injury. The bullet went through into his spine. And it transected or cut his spine, cut his spinal cord. That's a pretty bad thing.
It was another crazy night in Vegas. He showed up early for work at the strip club and ended with a 9mm bullet lodged in his back. Doctors at University Medical Center have saved Tommy Urbanski's life, but it will never be the same.
Where it was cut made him basically a paraplegic. He's not able to move his lower body. He can't lift his legs, move his legs, can't walk anymore. We had to have him intubated for quite a while. His father had the news before he did.
He is my youngest. When you see your child laying in a bed like this, it's not a happy time in your life. Tommy was just a gentle giant. I mean, he had trouble actually playing football. He didn't want to hurt anybody. He was just a mellow guy, you know?
Tommy finally awakes. His father is at his bedside.
First thing I came to when I saw my dad, I asked him, why'd you let me live?
What do you say when you hear something like that? I said, Tommy, but I still have you.
Doctors decide to leave the bullet lodged in Tommy's spine.
Going after the bullet doesn't change the outcome. Like in the Westerns, we see people shot, they dig the bullet out and they'd instantly get better. It's not true. If you go after the bullet, you'll damage more things getting it out.
Strange how one simple act has such devastating consequences. Weeks after the shooting, police finally find out why the shots were fired.
The threat was made against Aaron Cudworth. He was the other security guard that actually escorted the sports celebrity out the back door. Out back, threats were made against Aaron Cudworth, saying that he was going to kill him. Thomas Urbanski wasn't even there when all that happened.
Tommy was in the wrong place at the wrong time.
What had transpired inside was 2 hours earlier. After the fight, after everything, I came in.
The gunman is 32-year-old Arvin Edwards. Police say Pac-Man met with Edwards after being ejected from the club. Edwards pleads guilty to attempted murder. He gets 4 to 10 years.
He was actually pimping girls down here in Las Vegas. He was here for the NBA week. He actually had a tie with the IRC, which is the International Robbing Crew, a big gang in Atlanta.
I kind of felt sorry for his family, really. You know, I mean, I know his grandmother raised him, and he was just a stupid young kid with too much money.
While Pac-Man Jones didn't pull the trigger, Tommy and the other guards sue him for inciting the attack. They're awarded $12.4 million in damages. To date, Tommy has received $40,000.
It's a running joke between me and my lawyer, because with interest, it's almost about $18 million. I've collected less money that I could just barely about pay for this wheelchair. That's how much I've collected from Pac-Man Jones.
It hasn't been easy, but Tommy has begun to regain control of his life.
I hit the gym as much as I can, and I'm staying at it. I was a wrestler before. I used to get high from the gym, and I need that. I'm a guitar player, and so I knew I wasn't going to walk again, so playing the guitar again was everything to me.
He now performs in Vegas with his own band 4 Bullets Later.
So I live to do. I love my music. If I'm playing, my pain's gone. I'm happy.
The best goal we have for any of our patients here is to get them back to a normal, functional life. He'll always be a paraplegic, but I'm happy that he's completely functional and he's able to get around, do his own life, and do the things he wants to do.
You gotta stop feeling sorry for yourself and get to work, you know, if you're gonna have any kind of life. I am gonna walk again in my lifetime, be it by myself or hopefully a little bit of science and maybe a little bit of miracle. The next couple of years will mix together. Maybe a lot of us will be walking again. That's what I'm hoping for.
It's the entertainment capital of the world. If it's big, spectacular, and special, it's in Las Vegas.
This is definitely one of the hottest places to come in the country, so you get to see all kinds of different things going on here. Anytime there's a big event, you have to have medical coverage.
Because things can go spectacularly wrong.
Anytime I ever want to do overtime, I usually work for the special events division. Kind of a cool gig.
Especially when a hometown hero, the king of dirt, is the headliner.
When people think BMX and they think Vegas, they think TJ Lavin.
Born and raised in Las Vegas, TJ Lavin has done it all on a bike.
TJ was pretty much the pioneer of freestyle BMX dirt jumping. He pushed it to the next level by doing tricks that nobody else was doing.
This is what he does. He's a thrill seeker. First stitches at 9 months. First broken arm at 5. Never looked back.
When you ride BMX, if you don't crash, you're not trying hard enough. That's something I always try to tell the kids. And if you stay in your comfort zone, you're not going to progress like the rest of the riders. So if you're trying something and you crash, as long as you are comfortable crashing, as weird as that sounds, knowing that you can tumble out of it and get off the bike as best you can.
It's not a sport for the faint-hearted.
They're literally taking their bicycles and spinning them around and doing all kinds of crazy stuff on them, so you could see the possibility for an injury.
There's so many calculations involved, and if you miss it, you're hitting the ground. It was the Do Tour Championships, like the final stop of the Do Action Sports Tour. We were in the Hard Rock parking lot where the dirt jumps were built, and there was bleachers full of the fans. They were watching. It's just such a crazy, crazy incident just to goosebumps just thinking about it. Just silenced the crowd and nobody moved.
Sin City, show some love for TJ Lavin!
It was at the end of the night because I had just told my partner, like, hey, you know, this is the last guy. So it's always been an EMS thing, you know. Wait, you know, don't pack stuff up. Don't curse yourself. I was standing right there, full view, and it looked like he came down on his head pretty hard. It was pretty scary.
Something about the way he fell and the noise, it was a scary moment for everyone. His eyes were closed and then rolled back, and, you know, everyone's saying, "Wake up, TJ, wake up."
I just figured he was going to get up. He always gets up. And then he didn't get up, and he didn't get up, and he didn't get up.
He was actually having a seizure. He was in convulsions. When you convulse after a head injury, it can be an ominous sign. He just stopped seizing by the time We were getting him on the board. We put a collar on him, put him on our backboard, and then we got him on the gurney.
Paramedics alert UMC Trauma Center and give them their ETA.
We knew we were getting a rider that had fallen a distance and was unconscious and unresponsive in the field.
We started an IV on him. We had him on oxygen. My main thing was to make sure that he was protecting his airway, and I kind of kept an eye on that. I took his blood pressure quite a few times.
I was just watching what the medics were doing. People were calling me on the phone. Cars were on the side of us. His friends were following us in the van, and you know, it was just kind of a whirlwind.
I just kept texting her, texting her, texting her, and he just didn't wake up.
Got TJ to UMC Trauma Center within 9 minutes.
Dr. Michael Casey and the trauma team are ready as the ambulance pulls in.
He was not speaking and not conscious.
TJ, can you hear me?
Get ready to intubate now.
We can reduce things that injure the brain. We make sure he gets oxygen. Thanks. So we had to put a tube in to help him breathe.
Assessing his injuries is their #1 priority. He needs a full body scan before they can go any further.
We were always worried about cervical spine or the neck injury because he took a big fall. Worried about the rest of his body. He can't tell me because he's not acting right and he's not conscious. You may not see a broken bone on a CAT scan, but the ligaments that hold the bones together could be damaged. If you move them, you can make them paralyzed at that point.
The news is not good. The scan confirms what doctors already suspect.
TJ had a very severe brain injury. He had an active bleeding source in the brain, and he had edema, which is the swelling of the brain tissue itself, and all of that lends itself to being potentially fatal.
Neurosurgeon Dr. Stuart Kaplan must assess how severe the bleeding and swelling is and whether they have to operate.
The CAT scan showed a small amount of hemorrhage, but nothing so significant as to require surgery. In other words, an open surgery, what they call a craniotomy, which means remove a portion of the skull, remove a blood clot. So nothing so significant as that.
Instead, he decides to monitor TJ's brain.
We place a fiber optic catheter we place right on the surface of the brain, and it measures the pressure of the brain, like a blood pressure cuff of the arm.
Think of the brain as being inside of a fixed box. The brain swells, it can't get out of the box. So it pushes down onto the spinal cord and you herniate, and the brain kills itself. It shuts off the blood supply and the brain dies.
TJ is placed in the ICU. His chances of surviving are 50-50. All anyone can do is wait. The next morning, the pressure in TJ's brain is unchanged. Even if he survives, his brain could be permanently damaged.
I never wanted him alone. So somebody was with him 24/7.
On the third day, the pressure finally goes down.
His swelling had come under control, so then it was just time to let him heal and to give him time to let his brain heal.
TJ has survived, but he remains in a coma, hooked up to a feeding tube, a respirator, and a catheter. Will TJ wake up? And if he does, will he be the same?
You don't know what the brain's done. So you don't know what that pattern of injury is going to be, whether he forgets 3rd grade, whether he can't say the word salad. You don't have a clue. You hope that he goes back to being himself and being normal.
They don't tell you much because they really don't know enough about the brain. They don't know how far you're going to come back. That's all they kept saying to me. Well, we can't give you a timeline.
That was the hardest part, is just seeing him like that and then not being able to do anything. Well, I mean, he could wake up in the next 2 minutes or the next 2 years.
There's also another worry. Blood clots.
Think about taking a long flight where you can't move for 12 hours. People get blood clots in flights. Think about him laying in a bed without moving. High risk for blood clots.
The days begin to take their toll.
Started to come unglued just a little bit, and I started to panic.
It's been a week, and TJ Lavin remains in a coma with a serious brain injury. While they wait, doctors deal with the other injuries he suffered in the crash.
He had a wrist injury and he had a clavicle fracture. That's his livelihood. That's how he was able to do all those amazing things on a bike that he did, and why he was asleep, they got fixed.
Still, TJ shows no signs of regaining consciousness.
It's hard because we're so used to our friends crashing, and then you get up, you get better. That's normally the routine, but there was no sign of him getting better.
Day after day, hoping for something. And then, a sign.
We always do this thing where we like squeeze each other's hands like, I love you, and then the other person says, you know, love you more. There was a moment where I squeezed his hand like that and he squeezed it back. It was a pretty intense moment because that's just something that we've always done together, and he didn't wake up, but when he squeezed my hand, I thought, man, okay, he's in there.
TJ's condition is upgraded from critical to serious. Doctors remove his breathing and feeding tubes. And then, a setback. He develops pneumonia, a common problem for patients with breathing tubes.
We have vocal cords that close flat, and you put a tube in it, holds them open so bacteria can get down inside there. And bacteria loves warm mucus. So the things you normally cough are now trapped between that tube and your lungs. If it's not treated aggressively and it's not treated appropriately, people will die from pneumonia.
That was something that got everyone very scared again, because I thought, oh my gosh, you know, he's recovering and now he has pneumonia and it's really dangerous. So that was extremely scary situation. Luckily, they got to it very quickly.
Every day, we're looking for pneumonia. The nurses are great about cleaning the teeth, sucking out all the secretions, making sure things are done well.
We tried to talk to him every day, all day. We played music for him from the very beginning. We played music for him because they said that was good.
Although he's moving and there are signs he's in there, TJ has not opened his eyes.
After the 10th day, that's when I started to just completely break down. And I thought, oh my God, if he doesn't wake up today, I don't know what I'm gonna do.
Finally, something gets TJ's attention.
What's up, man?
We have a friend, his name's Tony. He's from Bulgaria, so very thick accent, just a very distinct voice. And for some reason, his voice triggered something in TJ, and he started to come to.
I was like, Tony, how you going, mate? Like, instantly. Him and I have that banter together. He's the reason, like, that I instantly needed to wake up and talk to him because I didn't see him for a minute. It was crazy. All of my senses were really bad. I had double vision. I could hear, but that's about it. My first thought of waking up was, man, this is prison. Get me out of here. I tried to get up, and I fell right away. I crashed in the hospital room floor, and everybody's like, TJ, and I was like, no, I'm cool.
It was pretty amazing. Just, you know, I walked in there, and he's sitting on a chair, and he just looks up, and he just smiles, and I just started crying. I just couldn't believe it. I was so happy.
And I went in the bathroom, and my friend Reed Johnson, he's a baseball player, he came in there with me, and he held my hand while it held my piece. And he's like, TJ, tell your friends that don't wear helmets that it's a lot cooler to wear a helmet than it is to have your best friend holding your piece while you're taking a piss. So I'll never forget that. That's pretty funny.
A month after the horrific bike crash, the King of Dirt leaves UMC and faces a long road to recovery and rehab.
They taught him how to read. They taught him the whole thought process, how to tie his shoes. They taught him money. They got him walking again. I've never seen anybody so determined to get better.
I mean, it's crazy how you have to relearn a lot of things. I have a lot of different things that I do, and like one of them is playing piano, and I could remember some of the songs and remember how to play that and remember how to play this.
When he started playing the piano, I actually started crying then. I had to leave. I walked away and was bawling my head off because it was like he was back, but he wasn't. But there was hope.
One thing that's still up in the air. Why did the BMX superstar crash on a trick he could do in his sleep? What went wrong?
I'd had some super weird feelings going into that contest, and I even called my mom and I was like, I think this is gonna be my last contest, I'm over it. And the day before, I had a good friend of mine take a very hard slam, and it was the hardest crash I've ever seen in my life, and it really scared me.
He'd called the ambulance and held him till the ambulance got there, and then the TJ went to the hospital and he met all the doctors and nurses the night before.
His friend was actually in a coma.
I felt very responsible for it almost. I was like, man, I shouldn't have let that kid ride those jumps.
You know, coming into the competition the next day, he realistically should have pulled out. He hadn't got any sleep. You know, he was very upset about his friends.
When it came time to doing his run in the contest, that's when it really showed that his head wasn't in the game.
If you would have made me a bet that said, TJ, do this naked, I would have done it, no problem. It was that easy of a trick for me.
The impact and the way he hit, it could have killed someone, but I know that he's so tough and he's such a fighter.
I told him he couldn't ride because of his injuries and so forth. And he says, okay, well, instantly out of the hospital, he's back riding. It's hard to keep someone like him from doing things.
He's just as anxious and energized as ever. Definitely made a full recovery. We're very lucky.
Changed my life for sure. I'm definitely not gonna be a competitive dude anymore. I'm way more chill, and I don't sweat the small stuff, and it's all small stuff, so.
He's taken so many slams over the years, hard ones, and I don't know if that's something that you can credit to how tough he is and how he managed to pull this one off and recover, but it was definitely close. BMX is crazy, the level the sport's progressing every year, and safety gear finally is something that's finally becoming an issue. TJ has made a big push to make being safe cool. The tragic injury that he had and how close he came is what makes other people realize what could happen to them as well.
I want to thank the doctor that fixed my wrist because it's good to go. Look at that thing. It's sweet. Thank you for keeping the swelling down on my head too. I appreciate it. It would have been a sick story if I would have died, but I'm glad I'm here.
There doesn't seem to be any rhyme or reason to it. It doesn't matter if it's a holiday, a weekend, a middle of the week. It's always a party in Vegas.
Some days you just can't predict what's going to happen.
A male fell from the MGM sign 15 stories.
I just knew his internal injuries would be great.
He came at me and just laid into my finger. In 24 hours, it was the size of a baseball glove. I'm saying goodbye to my fingers.
We need to be talking about taking something off.
We were losing altitude. This is it. This is how I'm gonna die.
When someone arrives, the only chance they have is the chance they have with us.
Fire medical.
Jesus. 911, what is your emergency?
Las Vegas, a glittery world unlike any other place on the planet. Everything is possible, and nothing seems real. Especially when you're from small-town USA like Tara and Richard Montgomery. The couple from Paducah, Kentucky, won a trip to Sin City at a trade show in Atlanta.
We spun the wheel, and then we realized we won the grand prize, which was a trip to Las Vegas. We had never been to Vegas before, so we were excited to just see what it was about. You see it on television, but it was kind of neat to see it in person.
I was just amazed this place never goes to sleep. It's all hours of the night, 24/7. I think I was really just totally mesmerized by the, especially at night, all the lights. Before we even came out, Tara kept saying, I want to go see the MGM. And I said, okay, we'll work it into our schedule. We've got several days we're going to be there. And time was beginning to run out on our trip, so she said, let's go tomorrow morning. And I said, okay, that sounds great.
We were walking down the strip, you know, shopping for souvenirs for some of our family, and we realized that there was construction going on around the MGM, so we weren't expecting that, so we had to kind of stop and regroup there.
Then, out of nowhere, the unthinkable happens.
We looked up and out of the sign, we see this man falling.
He was kind of waving his arms and he was screaming for help. Then he hit the ground and it just got dead silent. I did a quick glance around to see maybe we were seeing a movie being filmed or something, that maybe this wasn't real. This wasn't a movie.
I grabbed Tara's arm and I said, we've got to go. She said, go where? I said, we have got to go help this man. No one is helping this man.
As a nurse, I was honestly not prepared to really find someone that was alive. I was just screaming, someone call 911.
Fire medical. I'm standing in front of the GM Grand Casino, and a man just fell from scaffolding 100 feet at least. The Tropicana side or the Boulevard side? On the Boulevard side.
We got a call for a Delta response. I'm seeing that, you know, it's an unknown age male who fell from the MGM sign, which is almost 15 stories. There's no possible way he could have survived.
The sign sits on Las Vegas Boulevard. People and cars jam this street 24/7. The paramedics will have to battle traffic to get there. Until they do, it's up to Richard and Tara.
Finally found a man laying there on his back in a perfect little small area.
Completely covered in dirt. Small pebbles all over his face, in his eyes, making some noises, kind of a rattling as he's breathing.
Incredibly, the man is still alive.
Fire or medical?
We need an ambulance out in front of MGM.
Is this for the person that fell?
Yes.
Okay.
He's passed out right now. He's passed out right now.
Is he breathing?
Is he breathing?
His airway's getting tight.
His airway's getting tight. We got a nurse here that was walking along.
Flag him down when you see us. We're coming at you.
His head was only about 6 or 8 inches away from the window washing scaffolding. Just another foot or two away was a concrete retaining wall.
And he missed that just by, I mean, inches. If he had hit that, we would have come upon a much more gruesome sight than what we found.
I began trying to assess the other situation we had around there. We were beginning to get drops of water falling around us. And so I looked up at that time, and when I did, I could see up into the base of this sign that was up, I'd say 150 feet or so. I'm concerned about this sign. They've got this crane hooked onto it, and I'm afraid if this thing starts to give, or there's other things, metal going to come out of the sign, we've got to get out of here.
Tara's training as a nurse takes over.
I knew the first thing we had to do was establish his airway, make sure he was breathing good. I pulled down on his chin so that he was getting as much air as he possibly could. I also was very fearful that he had spinal cord injuries.
Without emergency treatment, he'll die on the spot.
We just knew that any second that was going to be the last breath that we would hear.
I just knew that he wasn't going to survive.
Experts say the human body can't survive much more than a 30-foot fall. This man has fallen 150 feet. That's 15 stories.
Just pray, Richard, pray for this man. I said, he's got a family. I said, he might have a wife or children. He's got a mom, dad, brothers and sisters. I said, I think the reality of this is a person now was kind of sinking in on me. So I said, just pray for him. And so a couple seconds went by and I said, like, pray out loud. I need to hear your words.
I reached my hand over and I laid my hand on this guy's chest. Just began praying. And I just remember praying and hardest I think I've ever prayed in my entire life. I just remember asking God, please just let this man live. Please let him have just one more breath.
The paramedics fight through the traffic and reach the scene.
I'm looking up at the MGM sign and seeing how far the distance was. We were walking up on a dead body.
Paramedics were there, I would say 4 to 5 minutes. If we were in Kentucky, it would have been, 10 to 15 minutes.
As they began to come in, we got out of the way. There was not enough room in the area we were working with.
I just bawled for a little bit because it was so overwhelming. I told my husband, I said, we just saw a man die.
It's now up to the paramedics.
We had to go over the sides of this crane to get to this gentleman because it was so confined and so blocked off. And then we got to his side. It was a huge shock. He was breathing. We went from calling this guy a dead body to he's still alive, like we got to get moving. We figured we would just maintain his airway, his breathing and circulation to make sure that everything was in line with what the trauma center needed to resuscitate him when we got there.
University Medical Center is just 15 minutes from the scene.
The ambulance radio came in and said that they had a patient who had fallen off the MGM sign. We were in a state of disbelief. All of us know what that looks like. We drive by it frequently, and we prepped for the worst.
UMC is the only Level 1 trauma center in Nevada.
So when someone arrives, the only chance they have is the chance they have with us.
On the way, paramedics identify the man, Charles Schuler.
I was busy on my computer. My wife came into my office and she said, that was the Young Electric Sign Company calling. Chuck's work. The Human Resources Director said, there's been a problem at work. Chuck had a fall. And I knew right then he was dead. I asked what they knew. They said they didn't know anything. And I said, well, where did they take him? And they said, UMC.
Turn around, heads over here.
31 minutes after the first 911 call, Chuck is wheeled into one of UMC's trauma bays.
1, 2, 3.
Whenever we bring in a level 1 trauma, you feel like, okay, now I got the help that I need. There's 10 people taking care of this patient to make sure that the patient survives.
Just hang in there, okay?
Dr. John Fildes takes charge.
I've seen what it looks like when somebody falls 150 feet, and they will come in with open skull fractures and visible brain matter. In his case, it was clear that he was badly injured, but I was really relieved that he had escaped some of those things.
Not only is Chuck alive, he's awake and conscious.
Chuck, do you know where you are? Sure. You're in church?
Chuck has numerous external injuries, but it might be the internal ones that kill him. They need to find those fast. Chuck's parents arrive, desperate for any kind of news.
The lady guard ushered us into some kind of a private room, and she said the social worker will be with you shortly. I thought it was confirmed. I had lost him already.
All she can tell them is that Chuck is alive and the trauma team is assessing his injuries. And the first thing they do is to treat his pain.
These kinds of injuries come with extreme amounts of pain, 8 out of 10, 24 hours a day, nonstop. Most people have never experienced anything like that.
He's given an intravenous synthetic morphine and then a Valium-type drug to deal with the anxiety.
We went ahead and CAT scanned his brain, his entire spine, his chest and his abdomen and pelvis, and we shot x-rays of any area that looked like it could be fractured.
The scans show a small hemorrhage on the brain, broken ribs, broken shoulder blade, collapsed left lung, shattered femur, and fractured spine. It's a terrifying list.
The social worker gave us a rundown of his injuries. I mean, there was a lot of injuries. you know, and is he going to be all right? And there was only hope left. And there was precious little of that.
Chuck Schuler fell 150 feet off the MGM sign. It's headline news all over Vegas.
A cell phone video shot by a witness shows Schuler being taken away on a stretcher after falling more than 100 feet from the MGM sign to the ground below. The repairman suffered a broken back, femur, fractured ribs, and head trauma.
For Tara and Richard Montgomery, the couple from Paducah, Kentucky, who earlier today kept him alive until help arrived, it's a miracle.
We just looked at each other, just astonished, thinking, how in the world could someone survive a fall like that?
They said he was at the University Medical Center trauma unit, and that he was in critical but stable condition. We kind of got excited, to be honest with you. That was just like exhilarating feeling that, okay, he's stable.
Because UMC is a level 1 trauma center, specialists like neurosurgeon Dr. Stuart Kaplan are on call.
Obviously, the general rules of physics didn't apply because basically if you fall 150 feet straight down, one would assume that you would die. I mean, it was shocking to us all.
Chuck has survived the fall, but he's not out of the woods yet.
The guy is moving, so we know neurologically he's okay. He had what they call a burst fracture of L1, the first lumbar vertebra, which is the first one down from the thoracic area. But his fracture was unstable. We knew it required surgical stabilization in order to lock it in place.
If they can't stabilize Chuck's broken spine, he could wind up paralyzed. The next morning, Chuck Schuler heads into the first of 2 surgeries. One to repair his shattered femur, the second to stabilize his back. His other injuries, the broken ribs, broken shoulder blade, and the collapsed lung, are treated and will heal over time. To repair the broken femur, they insert a titanium rod in his right leg. Then, they begin the second, more delicate operation on his spine.
We have to be careful when we position them because somebody who has an unstable spine, we got to be very careful that we don't damage his spinal cord in positioning him.
They'll use a titanium rod and screws to stabilize the spine. It's vital those screws are placed in the proper trajectory or angle. For that, they use a portable X-ray machine, a fluoroscope.
So we can follow our screws as we place them into the vertebral bodies. What we then do is we basically make an incision on the back. We expose the entire spine. We then place in what they call our pedicle screws to lock in the spine. We place in our rod, place in our connecting nuts, and then we place in our bone graft material.
This should lock Chuck's spine into place, but it's a delicate operation. Things can go wrong.
The greatest fear you have when you do an operation next to the spinal cord is that you damage the spinal cord in one way.
It's a critical period. They won't know if the surgery had damaged his spinal cord until Chuck wakes up. He's beaten the odds once. Can he do it a second time?
Right after surgery, we want to see them awake and we want to see them moving their legs. Once I knew he moved his legs okay, I knew neurologically he would be okay.
2 days and 2 surgeries after his fall, Chuck comes through.
Where am I? Family came, a bunch of coworkers came. I don't remember seeing any of them, but they said that they talked to me, and I was worried about work when I shouldn't be, so.
He had some brain trauma. That was what we were really worried about the whole time. Everybody's saying it's okay, he will pass through it.
The same day as Chuck's surgery, Tara and Richard, the couple from Kentucky, are heading home. But not without visiting the man who fell from the sky.
Well, somehow, I don't know how they did it, but they found out where he was at. And they took a taxi cab from the Strip over to UMC. We met them in the waiting room of the intensive care unit.
We told Rose about how we prayed for him, and she said that just explains everything. She said when he got here to the trauma unit. He was conscious, and they asked him, "Do you know where you're at?" And he said, "I'm in church." I thought that was just the neatest thing.
Boy, that just sent chills up and down my spine. You know, just the small things like that that we can do in life for someone, not knowing what you're being asked to do at the time, how it can make an impact on someone's life.
I told my wife, that completes the miracle.
The bleeding between the brain and the skull turns out to be spinal cord fluid. That clears up on its own. Although Chuck's prognosis is good, he faces a long, long road to recovery.
I felt like it was taking my first steps all over again if I was a little kid. I was just worried that I would never get a normal stride back. I was always gonna have like some kind of limp or just an awkward, walk.
Chuck remembers little of that day he dropped from the MGM sign.
They would tell me several times what happened, and I would just forget and then ask again what happened to me. My short-term memory was gone, I guess, for a while.
On the day of his fall, Chuck and the rest of the sign crew were removing the LCD screens from the MGM marquee.
Everything was supposed to go smoothly. It didn't. We were getting real close to the end. The crane was hooked up to it. They cut the last few attachment points, and it wasn't budging. One of the guys thinks he knows where it's still connected. I'm running, to one side to the other. After that, I don't know what happened. Something must have broke out from underneath me, and I fell out of the sign. From what I was told, the thing that saved me was the fact that I hit a 20-foot palm tree. Probably broke my speed. I bounced off that, and I hit an 8-foot palm tree, and then I hit the ground. I hit the right things first before I hit the ground, and he said everything happened just right, like a perfect fall, I guess.
8 months after his miraculous fall, Chuck Schuler goes back to work.
He had a near-death experience, and that changes people. And it may be a long time before he gets back to where he was. I'm glad that I could do my part to heal his body and give him that chance.
We're just glad we were there to help him. God gave us that opportunity through our trip, and we felt like we were just where we were supposed to be that day.
Yeah, I still see the bright lights and all the scenic things you can go see, but Vegas now means Chuck Schuler to me.
Say Las Vegas, and you think of the Rat Pack days and those legendary shows and entertainers. But there are still rats in Vegas, and they can get out of hand.
I never saw a rat in my life until I met her.
When I first came to Las Vegas, I had the notion that everybody worked at a casino. If you didn't work as a stripper or a card dealer, then you were selling beer.
People come to Vegas for all sorts of reasons. Behind the scenes can be as crazy as what you see on the Strip. And if anybody should know, it's Kathy Boudreau.
I'm a stand-up comedian. I'm also a musician. And when I'm not doing all that, I am also a rat trainer for TV shows and movies and specialty magician shows on the Strip.
Yeah.
Much like men, rats are very easy to train. You feed them, and they do pretty much what you want. And they're very affectionate, and they're very cute.
Your drinky?
I've trained them to skateboard, to swim, to play basketball, to run mazes. I love making people scream with the rats. So when they're screaming, I know I've done a good job.
Kathy has nearly 100 rats housed in her garage, or as she calls it, the rat room.
There's about 4 women that I know of that train rats. And honestly, women over 30 tend to gravitate to the little rodents. There's a big culture of women that are in love with rats.
Her latest addition is Zeke.
Hey, new dude.
He's rehearsing for Penn and Teller's show.
This little guy didn't give me any indication that he was scared of me at all. Up to that point, very friendly. I reached into the cage for him, as I do every week with a friend of mine. He came at me and just laid into my finger and just held and held and held and held.
Are you okay? Oh my God, did he bite you?
Much like Roy and his tiger, I should have paid more attention. Friend helped me rinse it off. We kind of squeezed it out a little bit, and I thought, no, it'll go away. been training for 25 years, so you're gonna get bit. And I still had cages to clean, so I had the rest of the day to deal with.
It's ridiculous.
My fingers started getting a little larger, which is something I wasn't used to.
She called me at work. She said, a rat got me. A rat grabbed my finger and wouldn't let go, and we finally got him off. I mean, she'd been nipped before many times, you know, by other rats. She said, it's swelling up a lot, and maybe I should go over to the emergency room. And I said, well, yeah, you should.
Let's go.
Well, I was feeling very hot and feeling very dizzy and just telling Val, I just want to go back to bed. I just want to go to bed. I just want to go to bed. And, no, we have to get you taken care of.
All the while, her hand is getting bigger and bigger.
All I could feel was thud, 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 thud.
And bigger.
What is it? Bitten by a rat?
Take a seat. This was like I had gotten run over by a Mack truck pain. This was not a regular rat bite. I wasn't used to this. I really wasn't used to this.
The first thing doctors ask is, where did the rat come from?
It's really important. Is this a rat that you know or a rat that you don't know? If it's a rat that you don't know, you're looking about rabies, tetanus, you're not sure where this rat has been.
Kathy has no idea where Zeke has been.
It was a roof rat, not a standard pet rat.
Besides training them, Kathy rescues rats from all over Vegas.
I got called by a woman saying that she had a rat in her backyard, so I knew that he wasn't going to be as tame as some of the other rats that I've had before.
Rabies is rare in Nevada, so what else could it be?
Hand bites are very difficult. We want to look at those very closely. If the bite is near a joint or may have hit a bone, you'll do an x-ray of that area. Animal bites can be pretty forceful, and you can actually crack a bone. You're going to look for animal teeth left behind. Swelling tells you some sense of the severity, but it also raises our suspicion for potential infection.
The x-rays show the rat bite didn't hit a bone or burst a major blood vessel. No remnants of Zeke's teeth are there either. But Kathy's hand keeps getting bigger.
In about 3 hours is when it got to be about the size of a baseball. Just started to puff out like that.
Doctors decide to keep her overnight and start her on antibiotics.
The show was wrapping up. I got done, and I got a call from her saying she was over at the hospital. Her hand was ridiculous. It looked like Mickey Mouse's hand. And when I saw that hand, I was scared.
The pain was beyond what I could have possibly ever have thought it would be.
Days pass. There's no change in Kathy's hand. Antibiotics are not working, and her temperature is through the roof at 104 degrees. They decide to call in an infectious disease specialist.
Infectious disease is really an adventurous specialty where it relies on a lot of thinking and detective work, kind of like the Sherlock Holmes of medicine.
I don't know this doctor. Who is this doctor? Well, I'm a special doctor. Okay, well, nice to meet you, special doctor. What can we do about this?
Any animal's mouth is a very contaminated environment, and they have a high risk of infection. Specifically with rats, you worry about something called rat bite fever.
I had never heard of rat bite fever, and I've been working with rats since the 90s.
The big issue with rat bite fever is that this bacteria then spreads systematically through the body, affecting multiple different organ systems. Kidney failure, you can end up with liver failure, and that's what causes people with rat bite fever to die.
If untreated, the fatality rate is 10 to 15%.
And he said only 12 people that I know of have ever had it in the United States. It's a third world disease.
But rat bite fever isn't the only thing that could cause Kathy's infection. He needs to take blood samples and cultures to pinpoint exactly what's causing her hand to swell. All the while, that hand keeps getting bigger.
It was the size of a baseball glove. The Red Sox could have used my hand to win a World Series. They should have.
It's a tense time for Vegas rat trainer Kathy Boudreau, waiting to find out if she's been suffering with a potentially deadly infection known as rat bite fever.
And I sit there for another 2 or 3 days in a hospital as my hand is still swelling up. One bite and my whole life could change.
When the lab results come back, there's good news. Kathy does not have rat bite fever. The bad news? It's something that's equally dangerous. An infection called cellulitis.
There are types of cellulitis that can spread up a hand, eventually get into the bloodstream and cause a bloodstream infection or sepsis, and then that can kill you.
The cellulitis was rapidly progressing and actually involved some of the tendon sheaths there because of the inability and the pain she was having with moving her finger. So it was moving much deeper than just the skin.
The longer it goes, the worse the prognosis.
A hand is a tight space, so as things swell, you can pinch off nerves and arteries where there's just no blood supply anymore. You're getting something called necrosis, which is dead tissue, or people call it gangrene. When you start to get that, boy, we need to be talking about taking something off.
The decision to amputate is now up to a hand surgeon.
How do I take care of my animals? What's going to happen is me as a comedian, as an artist, as a musician, all these things that I do in the world are all related to my hands. We just got married 2 weeks before. I still had the new wife smell, and I was about to lose my hand that he had held at the wedding. I'm looking at my fingers, and I'm realizing I'm saying goodbye to my fingers one at a time. A silly rat is going to take everything away.
Good afternoon, how are you?
The same. Finally, the very attractive hand doctor comes in and said to me, "We're going to try to save your hand." I stopped breathing. I was already ready to say goodbye to my fingers and my hand.
First, they anesthetize the hand. Then, the surgeon makes a 1/4 inch incision to see how far down the tissue is damaged. He squeezes her hand to help it drain.
It wasn't like this god-awful, icky, slimy, cottage cheesy stuff that I expected. It was just water.
They clean the incision by powering saline, or sterile salt water, into the wound. They clean out what they can, remove the tissue that was destroyed by the infection, and then close it up.
And it went from looking like a baseball mitt down to a squishy glove in about 2 days after that.
Kathy is released from the hospital, her hand intact.
If I could meet that doctor again.
I'm not disabled, I'm re-abled. He saved my hand. Didn't have to cut my fingers off, didn't have to cut my hand off. I got to keep my palm. You know, I could have a palm reader read my hands now and tell me how crazy my life is.
And whatever happened to Zeke?
That rat that bit me lived a happy long life until he was 4 years old. This is Zeke Jr. And I use him to teach little kids to not be afraid of rats. He's a pretty cool little dude.
Looking for a quick getaway? That's Vegas. On any one weekend, the city's population swells by 300,000, most arriving by air, all folks looking for some sun and fun.
I had asked Susan and Doug how adventurous they would want to be on the trip, and they said, "You book it, we'll do it."
Tamika Savoy and her husband Randall of Louisiana have been friends with Susan and Doug Touche for years. She plans an off-the-strip kind of getaway.
We went to Red Rock Canyon, rode our ATVs, tour a gold mine, kayaking 11 miles downriver from the Hoover Dam. I wanted, it to be memorable.
2 days later, it's back to reality. For Tamika and Susan, it's the local hospital. For Tamika's husband Randall, it's farming crawfish in the ponds of Catahoula Parish. And for Susan's husband Doug, the pilot, back to his accounting firm.
We got on the runway and took off. My husband and I we had our shoes off and we would kick back reading magazines. We weren't in the air for very long, and Randall heard Doug say that we were losing altitude. We grabbed each other's hand. This is it. This is how I'm gonna die. We felt the very first impact. Metal scraping against the cement. Bright blue flames. No one else is screaming. If they're burning like I am, they have to all be dead to not be screaming. Got my seatbelt undone, but I was out. And then when I turned back to look, Randall was crawling out the plane. Hearing a lot of fuel just pouring. And I saw Doug and Susan, and I was going to help. Fuel ignited. We collapsed in a yard, and that's when the people in the neighborhood just started coming out.
Fire medical? I have no idea what's on fire near my house, but we need emergency rescue.
In the chaos, no one realizes at first exactly what's happened.
You got the calls an outside fire. It could be brush, could be trash. An outside fire is typically a one-engine response.
Where the plane landed, it was right in the middle of the street on an intersection. There was people everywhere.
Neighbors were grabbing hoses and anything to put out the fire, trying to just get everybody out of the plane.
I could already see the column of smoke. It was southwest of the station, a handful of miles away. Then some more reports started coming in, the plane down. We don't know what size plane it is. We don't know how many souls are on board. We upgraded to a full response.
They called for the rescue. We were not very far behind. When you go from 0 to 100 in like a second, your initial adrenaline is pretty intense.
The sirens, I heard them, they were coming.
We rounded the corner, and it was basically a street of destruction.
It's early morning in Las Vegas, and a 6-seater plane has crashed on a residential street. Debris is scattered along the full city block.
He didn't hit any houses. There were so many houses that he could have hit. That could have changed the whole scene pretty dramatically. Very surreal. Still smoldering, people everywhere.
It's a little chaotic. We had a wing sheared off in a backyard. The fuel from that was on fire. We had 2 in the front of the plane, and they were both very much alive. This was shortly after takeoff, so I'm sure his tanks were fairly full. We weren't sure if the liquids that were on the ground, how much was unburned fuel.
If it is fuel, it could ignite at any time. Firefighters know what they have to do and do it fast.
Put some foam blanket down. That's to protect the occupants in the plane as well as the firemen.
The pilot seemed more critical than the passenger. We wanted to get them out as quickly as possible.
The pilot of the plane, they had him out and they were doing CPR on him right away.
The pilot, Doug Touche, is in rough shape. He's rushed to the nearest hospital. His wife, Susan, is taken to University Medical Center. Amidst the chaos, neighbors tell firefighters there are 2 more victims further down the street.
When the first paramedic came to me, I was like, I was a nurse. Go to my husband, he's having trouble breathing. And then when they came to see me, I was like, okay, get my IV started. Here's my name, my date of birth. You know, I'm totally with the program. I know I don't have a head injury. Give me something for the pain. I couldn't take it anymore.
They had 2nd-degree burns and some 3rd-degree burns. Probably was more painful than the actual trauma they endured from the plane crash.
The adrenaline wore off, and that's when the pain kicked in. All I could do was scream. I couldn't do anything else but scream.
We're putting sterile water, and we're wrapping them with dry dressings called burn sheets. The Savoys were at a huge risk of becoming fatalities.
What a sad end to what had been a memorable weekend in Vegas. Paramedics alert University Medical Center that they have 2 more victims.
Is team all set? We knew that 3 were on the way. We knew 1 was sicker than the other 2, so we set up 3 teams.
Gloves?
Less than an hour after the crash, Susan Touche, Tamika Savoy, and her husband Randall arrive at UMC.
We immediately get to work on what we call the ABCs of trauma. Assess the airway first, breathing next, and then the circulation, then look at the disability, and finally expose the patient to find all of their injuries. Then you get to work on things. The best analogy I've heard from outsiders is that it looks like a pit stop at Minneapolis 500.
In 5 minutes, these ABCs tell Dr. Fildes that Randall is in danger.
We found multiple fractures.
Some tenderness here.
We found internal injuries.
3rd-degree burns.
We also had burns. The neurologic status was poor.
Randall, can you hear me?
Randall could have died at the scene.
He had broken 4 ribs. But it's the laceration in his spleen that needs immediate attention. It's dumping blood into his stomach area. He's at risk of bleeding out and dying. Randall is rushed into surgery. Back in the trauma unit, doctors work on Tamika's burns. It's the 2nd-degree burns causing the most pain because the nerve cells there are still alive.
I have never in my life experienced anything like that before. I tried childbirth for 24 hours straight with no medication, and burns was 100 times worse.
To stop infection, her burns need to be cleaned and bandaged every 8 hours. Not a job for the faint-hearted.
It's horrifying for the novice trainee in medicine to see when you wash or wipe these wounds, to just see all the skin come off in your hands.
By evening, Tamika's burns have been treated, and she's given medication to ease her pain.
From the knees down, my worst part was my feet. Your toes and your fingers, that's where you have a lot of nerve endings there for your sense of feel. That pain was something I'll never forget.
By now, her husband Randall is out of surgery and in the ICU. The doctors managed to repair the rupture to his spleen without removing it.
He had an oxygen mask on, and I was watching his vital signs on the screen, and he would take it off to talk to me, and I could just see his oxygen level going down, and I'm like, stop talking, just put it back on and just stop talking.
Tamika asks doctors about her best friend Susan Touche and her husband Doug, the pilot.
We had to tell her the pilot had passed away at the scene. It was information that she was demanding from us and information that we could not withhold from her, but it really hit her hard. It really was a difficult thing for her to absorb.
They told us that his injuries were too critical and that he couldn't make it to UMC, so they had brought him to a closer hospital, and that he didn't make it.
Susan Touche's injuries are just as severe. She's on life support.
Multiple fractures, there were central nervous system injuries, included burns. Her level of consciousness and her stability of her blood pressure and pulse was poor.
I visited with her for a bit. She looked very peaceful. All of her vital signs stayed stable. Her heart rate stayed pretty stable. And I remember just sitting by her bed and holding her hand, and I didn't want to speak. I didn't want to disturb her peace. And I stayed there for about 15, 20 minutes, just sitting there on the side of her bed.
Then, in the middle of the night, Randall takes a turn for the worse.
His spleen was bleeding, then bleeding pretty rapidly. We had to remove it as a way of trying to save his life.
Randall is at risk of bleeding out and dying once again. In Las Vegas, doctors at UMC have spent the night trying to save the life of Tamika Savoy's husband, Randall.
I buzzed the nurse's station and I was like, bring me to my husband. I want to see him now. And they were like, I have something to tell you. Last night, you know, he took a turn for the worse, and now he's on the breathing machine. He's on life support.
And she wanted to know, is he going to be okay? Is he going to be okay? And that's an impossible question for a trauma surgeon to answer. I told her I thought he would be okay, and that we would do everything we could to make sure he'd be okay.
By now, Randall's family has arrived from Louisiana. All they can do is wait and watch. as her husband fights for his life. Tamika's best friend, Susan Touche, is taken off life support.
She was in a very bad state, and we collaborate with the family in terms of what are the next steps.
The last time I saw Susan, I remember feeling so grateful that she didn't appear to be in any pain. The only time they told Susan about Doug was when they were going to take her off of the machines and let her go. They were telling her it was okay to go meet him. He was waiting for her. But I don't know how much she could understand.
Even more tragic is why Doug and Susan were in Las Vegas in the first place.
The year before, her son was in a car accident, and Las Vegas was the last place he was before he passed away. She had never been to Vegas and always wanted to come here and do the things that he did before he died.
The news only gets worse.
The day they told me they were taking Susan off of life support, the doctor also came in and said they had tried everything they could with Randall and that they just thought he would maybe have to be on the breathing machine forever.
It's unthinkable.
But it was hard enough for her to be that ill, to be in an intensive care unit, just struggling with her own issues. To be asked to make decisions about her husband's critical illness was just more than any one person could bear.
Being a nurse and knowing that there was nothing I could do, and then having to try to, you know, control the medical decisions for him, and then as well as the same time being sick myself and having the burns, skin grafts, and having to worry about if my kids were okay, and it was too much. We had 2 kids, ages 4 and 2, that were back home. I begged my mama. I remember sitting crying, begging, please bring my kids. But then I started thinking that, you know, Daddy was on the breathing machine, and I know if they'd come here, they'd want to see Daddy and talk to Daddy, and I didn't want them to see that.
Life is a gamble. A simple weekend away with friends in Sin City changes lives forever. But they also say time heals all wounds.
Randy.
Randall Savoy is taken off the ventilator and takes his first breaths on his own.
The brain, just like the heart and the kidneys and the lungs, reacts immediately to injuries in the body and reacts by becoming dysfunctional. So it takes time for them to really come around. You've got all the other problems solved, but you're waiting for their neurologic status to improve and they can come off the ventilator.
When I woke up, I was like, where am I? And he's like, man, you in Vegas. I was like, what? He's like, you got in a plane crash. I started crying. I was like, am I by myself? And he's like, no. He said, your wife's down the hall. Mom and Dad, they come here every morning. They've been coming here for a month. And I was like, a month?
She's gonna be okay.
He went from them not thinking he would make it to, boom, he's going home.
I was really, really, really lucky. My splenectomy, the staples was out. My burns on my legs, it was just white, you know? It was healed, but it was just white. And the first time I stood up, they turned purple. And it felt like a million needles in my legs when the blood rushed to my feet.
1 month after the crash, Tamika and Randall Savoy head home. This time, not by plane. Their family rents an RV for the 1,600-mile drive back to Catahoula Parish.
I said I would never fly again. It took about 36 hours to get back home.
Tamika and Randall are back in Vegas for this show, flying for the first time in 5 years.
5 years.
Well, you're in great shape now. Look at you, buddy.
I went to work back in probably January.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you so much.
yeah.
My mom talks about you all the time.
You know, they're really highly functional. They're all back at work. They're really happy about life. I mean, that's really a great save. Did you go over and visit today?
Yes, we did.
Glad. I'm sure they were happy to see you.
At the hospital, memories come flooding back.
There was a room with a metal table, and there was hoses hanging from the ceiling. And anytime they would have to take me in that room, I knew it was an intensive dress and change. just walking by that room, I teared up and I was crying because I just seeing it brought back the memories of the pain. Even today, I have some spots on my tips of my toes that are still really, really sensitive and I can't touch. But other than that, I've healed up great. My legs look amazing, but that pain was something I'll never forget. I remember every second of the crash. I remember the smell of the jet fuel. When the guy from the NTSB brought me my wallet, it smelled the jet fuel. When you put gas in your car, it's not the same smell. It has a very distinct smell, and I said, just get rid of it. Just wash my ID cards. I don't want to see it again. Get rid of it. Because that smell is so distinct, and it brought back everything. We went back to the neighborhood, too, where the accident was.
They always wondered and thought about us if we're still alive, you know, so how we ended up.
And they'll never forget their friends, Susan and Doug Touche.
With every fiber of my being, I believe that Randall and I are alive today because of what Doug did. Not just saving our lives, but he dodged every house. He truly is my hero, and he always will be.
You can't thank somebody enough for that. You can't. There's no words to thank somebody enough for doing that.
My mom would really love it if I can get a picture with you.
Las Vegas to me is a very interesting place, and I wish it was like 1,000 miles closer to where I live. That way I could drive.
We call it the Vegas syndrome. Every day is different. Never gets old.
Yeah, whatever happens in Vegas usually ends up at UMC.
We got an emergency situation here.
I was the little red devil in pasties, bringing out the sin in everyone in Sin City.
And it sounded like somebody punching a watermelon. Nothing surprises you in Vegas anymore. As I'm running and closing the distance, I hear gunfire. Think of your wife, think of your kids.
He arrested on arrival. We're in trouble.
He was rolling back out on the line, unclipped. I saw him just drop.
He's mangled, he's torn up, he's a mess.
He really had a hard time making heads or tails of his anatomy. It just looked like ground hamburger.
That's always the risk we run in this town. They just lose their inhibition, and they do dumb things.
Fire medical.
Excuse us.
911, what is your emergency?
It doesn't matter what you want. You can find it in Vegas. High end to low end, and everything in between. A few miles from the Vegas Strip and all its glitzy glamour is Fremont Street, a freak show of in-your-face, out-of-work, pushy performers from everywhere, hustling tourists for tips.
I'm out of shape. I'm an old guy with long hair, and I play heavy metal guitar, and nobody expects to see that out here.
I lost my job as an auto mechanic. One night I woke up with a dream, and in my mind it was Cupid. Went out there, and it just took.
Like 28-year-old Amber Stark, who goes by the name Misty Sins.
Well, this is Sin City, so obviously there needs to be someone down here bringing the sin out in all these tourists.
Come get your picture with the devil, folks. After all, you are in Skin City.
I was the little red devil in pasties and a G-string. Some of the characters just tend to stand there and wait for people to approach them. From being down there 4.5 years and watching, I see that they don't do as well as the characters that actually drag the customers in.
It's not your average 9-to-5 job. Misty relies on the kindness of strangers for her tips.
I'll just be flirtatious. I always tell them, you know, come get your good luck photo with the devil, or welcome to Skin City.
She doesn't really have to, you know, try to draw them in. They just automatically come to her.
It's a rowdy place, especially at night when the tourists arrive, drinks in hand.
I always watch out for her, and if I can't, you know, I have somebody down there. When you got a wife that's down there, you know, about 90% naked, then the people want to grope and get handsy.
Shame on you! Shame on you!
I've had people that have come up behind me and licked my body parts, tried to stick things in my body parts. Pretty stupid things that I'm sure their buddies, you know, talked them into trying, or I dare you. And so, yeah, people get pretty crazy.
But sometimes the attention can get out of control.
It was a pretty good crowd. We had a pretty good flow of people. You could tell they'd been drinking a lot.
Hey, how's it going?
Hey, how you doing, sweetheart? Oh, look at you.
This particular individual was taking pictures from afar, and I kind of waved him over and let him know, you know, hey, you know, tips are greatly appreciated, and I'll post for your photo if you'd like.
Okay, listen, you can't take any more pictures unless you're gonna, like, you know, you have to give me something.
I'm giving you something, my attention. Is there a problem here?
No,
Who the f is talking to you, cowboy? Get the f out of
Hey,
here.
man, like, look, this is not reasonable. Come on.
He got really, really close to me and was being very vulgar.
No more. Stop it now.
Let's go. Come on.
No more pictures.
F you, and you don't know who I am, and I'll F you up.
I can hold my own against somebody like you. Who do you
Yeah?
think you are?
Her husband, Richard, is nearby. He hears the commotion.
I always watch out for her, and if I can't, you know, I have somebody down there, because, you know, it can get pretty crazy pretty quick.
Yeah?
Misty, being a Scorpio, she thinks she's 10 foot tall, even though she's only 5'2". Takes no crap off nobody. Her whole family works in the prison. Well, she was always told that you stand up for yourself. So I'm sitting there and I'm watching him, you know, watching his body language. I'm watching her and I'm like, yeah, this ain't good.
Back off. I think you need to take a step back, okay?
I had some pepper spray with me.
I'm gonna give you to the count of 3, and I'm gonna spray this right in your eye. 1.
Well, he decided not to back up.
What are you gonna do about it?
He roundhoused her and hit her right above her ear. And it sounded like somebody punching a watermelon. I mean, it was just a big thud.
Richard comes to his wife's defense.
He hit her and he hit her hard. Never knocked her out. And I'm thinking, damn, somebody hit me like that, I'd probably be out there just passed out. But no, she was mad.
She's down, but she's not out.
Yeah? What are you gonna do about
And he's kind of hunched over, and he's got this devil on his back. And he's going like, you know, trying to thrash her off. And her tail, so I don't know whether to laugh or jump in there.
Next thing I know is I hear her scream, and she's on the ground. A guy shouldn't be hitting a girl. And, you know, I just, like, say she's a friend, and I see a friend in need, I'm there to help out.
What?
The cowboy joins in. It's a brawl. Despite being pepper sprayed, the attacker fights them off and makes a run for it.
The guy got up and took off running into Binions. I couldn't chase him because characters aren't allowed in the casinos.
When the dust settles, all eyes turn back to Misty.
She would definitely look like she was like, out of it. She was crying, so, again, I knew, she was hurt bad. And because, she's a tough girl, so for her to cry, she would have had to been really hurting.
Someone in the crowd calls 911. When the paramedics arrive, they can tell something is wrong.
What's going on here? Hello, ma'am. What's your name?
I couldn't see straight.
Look at my nose. Okay.
Everything was crisscrossed. I was very disorientated, and I couldn't really tell who was moving or where they were going or where I was at exactly.
Can I drive her? They said, well, if she keeps asking the same questions, then it's serious.
Misty is showing all the signs of a potentially serious head injury. They have no insurance, so Richard drives his wife to the hospital.
To breathe or to bite down or to try to talk was really, really painful.
At the hospital, Misty gives her real name, Amber Stark. And while she waits to see a doctor, a nurse fits her with a neck brace.
Amber Stark, we're ready for you. Come this way.
Dr. Keaton Patel is on duty. She tells him about the fight on Fremont Street, the blow to the head, and the knock to the ground.
Obviously, she's from Fremont Street, dressed differently, so nothing surprises you in Vegas anymore, and I think I don't get thrown back as much as I used to.
Just look straight at me, please.
First, Dr. Patel looks for external signs of head trauma, like bruising around the eyes or bleeding from the ears.
She told me, I feel a little bit confused about the event.
Just gonna make sure that everything there is okay. Yeah, that hurts too, right? Yeah.
I'm feeling loopy, I'm feeling nauseous.
Please, can you just puff up your cheeks, just...
In a concussed patient, you're always worried that they could have something other major underlying, such as a brain bleed, which would be more concerning.
If there is a bleed inside Amber's brain, it could cause permanent damage, even death.
If you have blood in your brain, it's collecting where there shouldn't be blood. Now you're having pressure increased in your brain. So think about blowing up a balloon to its limits, and you keep on adding and forcing more air and more air. It's going to put tension in all those structures on the brain and can cause death.
Amber seems alert and stable, but appearances can be deceiving.
People constantly surprise you. A patient may look well speaking to you, and in 6 hours, they may be dead, and that happens.
A scan is the only way to tell if she has a brain bleed.
These manifest as abnormalities on the CT scan where you can actually see a bruise or bleeding or a change in the normal structure of the brain.
That kind of scared me. That really let me know this is pretty serious.
A blow to the head on the streets of Vegas a few hours earlier, and now Amber Stark faces the possibility of brain damage. If there's bleeding inside her skull, her life could be in danger.
I wanted to be detailed. I wanted to make sure I saw everything, make sure she didn't have a neck injury with this head injury, make sure there wasn't any other signs of trauma.
The news is good. Dr. Patel finds no sign of a brain bleed, but he does spot something.
Amber actually had a fracture in the medial portion of her eye on the left side. That area is actually called the lamina papyrisa, which is Latin for paper thin. It's a paper thin bone, and so if you get a high enough impact like Amber had, which is this punch, it can cause a fracture of that area. Whenever people injure or get a fracture of their global orbit, that could cause someone to go blind if not recognized.
It's a potentially life-changing injury. But once again, Amber escapes permanent damage.
Luckily for Amber, it was an isolated fracture of her orbit that wasn't causing any impact on her eye itself.
There's no medical treatment for the fracture. It will heal on its own. But she does have post-concussive syndrome.
Some people have concussions for 72 hours. Sometimes symptoms can last for a year.
You're gonna, you know, have severe migraines, you're gonna get headaches, you're gonna have discomfort in your neck, no sleeping for a certain time frame. They did give me a dose of pain medication before they released me to try to ease the pain some.
"10 days later, Amber is Misty Sins again, back on Fremont Street, tempting tourists for tips. Her attacker was never identified.
The incident replays in my head, and it keeps me on high alert. You have to constantly pay attention and be aware of your surroundings, because you never know what anyone out there is capable of or when they might do it.
But that's always the risk we run in this town, with people intoxicated or high, and they just lose their inhibition and they do dumb things.
Only in Vegas would you have a gold cowboy and Cupid helping the devil try to win her battle. It's absolutely only in Vegas.
It's called Sin City for a reason. People come here to drink, gamble, and go crazy. It's business as usual for cops working downtown. Every night is a gamble.
What's unique about Las Vegas is that you have the Strip and downtown. Those areas are unique because it's not a community that you're policing, but it's an industry. It's a tourist industry. You see some off-the-wall things.
You never run into the same thing twice. You never know what you're gonna get.
In March 2010, officers Mike Madlin and Chris LeBlanc are on duty. Tonight, they're in the southwest part of town when they spot something suspicious.
We see a vehicle go by, and we see the occupants inside watching us, watching them.
They run the tags through the computer.
Vehicle ends up coming back stolen.
This particular vehicle matched the description of a car that was involved in a shooting the previous night.
They tail the vehicle, but the driver ignores them.
It just kind of cruised around at the speed limit, just failed to stop.
They pursue the stolen car for a few blocks. Finally, headquarters gives them permission to run the car off the road.
Basically roll up on the back quarter panel of the vehicle and give a little nudge, and then it'll spin the car out. 9 times out of 10, it kills the engine.
2 men get out and make a run for it. Other officers now involved in the chase nab one of the suspects. The other bolts over a wall and runs through the backyard of a nearby home.
Officer Madlin goes in foot pursuit of the suspect, and I follow Madlin to make sure that he's got a team member there to back him.
As the suspect races through backyard after backyard, a police helicopter tracks him and makes a dangerous discovery.
Air unit advised both of us that the suspect had a firearm.
LeBlanc races to catch up. He's about 50 yards away from Madlin.
As I'm running and closing the distance, I hear gunfire.
2 shots ring out.
I thought the gunfire was directed at me.
LeBlanc finally catches up and finds Madlin wrestling with the suspect.
I see the suspect's actually leaned up with a firearm in his hand, pointing at Officer Madlin's head, like he's gonna execute him.
He has no choice.
I have my weapon out, and I neutralize the suspect.
That's when LeBlanc realizes Madlin has been shot.
Madlin stands up for a short moment and then collapses.
911 emergency. Oh my God, there's a guy. He's got a gun. Is he inside or outside? He's outside in our backyard. There's a helicopter out. Oh my God, I don't know if they got him. I think they're shooting.
Mike! Madlin has been shot twice. His bulletproof vest stopped the first. The second is in his right leg.
Down. Shots fired, I repeat. Officer down.
The entire pant leg was saturated with blood. You could see him fading. You know, there was really no expression. All the color had changed from his face, and, you know, he was just gasping for air. The only thing that was going through my mind was, we can't have one of our team members die like this. It's not gonna happen.
I need you guys 10-8 for code 32128.
Dispatch force we copy the call. We're en route. We were probably about maybe less than a minute away from the call, so we head that way. You can do all sorts of scenarios in your head, but you really don't know what's going to happen or what you find until you actually show up. It was just chaos. There was a black car that was halfway in the street, halfway on the sidewalk. We had tons of police officer cars around, and we had one officer flagging the sand.
In the backyard, there are cops everywhere, blood everywhere. A lifeless body of a man, and Officer Madlin is bleeding from a bullet wound to his leg.
As soon as I looked at him and I seen the color of his skin, I was just like, okay, this is real.
Madlin is 31 and a 3-year veteran of the force. He's married and has a 3-year-old son.
Just by the amount of blood that there was, I was thinking that it hit an artery in his leg.
Oh, stay with me, man.
I was holding his head, talking with him, trying to keep him awake and alert.
Stay with me, Mike, come on.
Just reminding him, you know, hey, you gotta pull through this. Think of your wife, think of your kids.
Oh, stay with me, man. Get some pressure on that. We'll get you stitched up, buddy. Stay with me, Mike, come on.
We can't let him die. We can't let him die.
We immediately put a trauma dressing on there, wrapped it up and made sure that nothing bled through. It did bleed through a couple times, and we just added more trauma dressings to the wound.
Mike is bleeding to death, and there's nothing they can do to stop it.
We delayed the bleeding. The only thing that could stop it was surgery.
Let's go.
It's only a 6-mile drive to University Medical Center, where a trauma team is activated and waiting.
I got a big pulse.
But Officer Madlin may not even make it that far.
Everybody's familiar with like a liter soda bottle. So we have about 6 to 7 of those in the body, and he lost one of those liters of soda. He started to decompensate a little. Blood pressure was low, pulse rate was extremely high.
They're losing him.
Guys, hold on back there.
And there was officers in front of us, there was officers in back of us. We had a helicopter like, on top of us. And the unit is like shaking. My heart is pounding. I'm like gunning it as much as I can. And I don't want that to be the story, the headline. You know, AMR unit breaks down on the freeway with critical officer in the back.
All right, you're making a right turn.
The whole time I'm just yelling to them, you know, directions. I'm going left, I'm going right. I don't know how much stuff they got done in the back with all the driving.
Trauma surgeon Dr. Terry Lewis is on duty when the ambulance pulls in.
They were coming fast. They hadn't done a lot of other care. This is a case of load and go.
One single GSW to the right femur. Attacking at 160 BP 70 on 50. He's going on 2 large 4 IV.
In the resuscitation bay, things take a turn for the worse.
Eyes rolled back.
His BP's tanky.
He was unconscious.
He's coding.
Arrested on arrival. That right away is, we're in trouble.
No pulse. Everybody clear.
In Las Vegas, doctors fight to save the life of Officer Mike Madlin. He's gone into cardiac arrest from a gunshot wound.
The immediate concern with somebody that's exsanguinated to the point of a cardiac arrest is that this is probably a femoral artery or femoral vein injury. Half of them die at the scene, half of them die in the first 24 hours.
As doctors try to restart Mike's heart, his wife gets the call no one wants.
I got a phone call from one of his friends on the department. He told me that Mike was shot and I need to get to UMC. There was probably just like 100 things racing through my mind. I felt like I could barely, I was shaking a lot.
Everybody clear. Go home.
300, 300.
In the trauma unit, doctors work to restart Mike's heart, at the same time pumping him with blood just to keep him alive.
Once the heart stops, you got to circulate that fluid to keep the brain activity going and everything.
Everybody clear.
Mike's heart comes back to life,
Yeah, pulse.
but they still need to stop the bleeding.
If you lift your finger up, the blood would shoot up out of the wound again.
If it is the femoral artery, there's only one way to stop the bleeding.
This was an immediate go to the operating room situation.
Getting to the damaged artery means going around the bullet wound.
You make incisions up and down from the hole to gain exposure to the artery. The concept is to gain control of the bleeding vessel above and below the hole.
Clamps pinch off the artery and cut off the blood flow.
We're ready for the vascular repair.
Then everybody calms down, slows down, take a breath, and you can then organize the repair of the vessel.
Okay, let's have a look.
The bullet has torn through a good chunk of Mike's artery.
Sometimes that may be worse than if it was totally cut in half, because if a blood vessel is totally cut in half, it will tend to withdraw and constrict, and sometimes that will slow down the blood loss. If it has a tangential cut like this, the vessel's held open and continues to bleed.
It's no easy fix. All his family and fellow officers can do is wait. "8 hours and 80 units of blood later, Mike is wheeled out of surgery. He's still clinging to life. Toxins have built up in his leg from the lack of circulation. He could go into shock at any moment.
Even after the repair, he would be watched very carefully in intensive care to make sure that he wasn't going to have complications related to reestablishing that circulation.
Our medication going in.
Mike is put in a medically induced coma to give his body time to recover.
Yeah, cycle. Perfect.
The first time that I saw him, they brought me back and it didn't really look like him. He was very, very swollen. He was on a ventilator. I was just really scared that he might not make it. I just try to stay positive, hope for the best.
A setback. Mike develops compartment syndrome. Pressure builds up in the leg, killing blood vessels and reducing blood flow to a trickle. He goes back into surgery.
And he required an extensive fasciotomy, or a cut of the skin and the muscles of his leg, because of the pressure that was building up in his leg. These incisions allow the leg to swell so that it doesn't shut off the circulation.
His legs got infected a couple times. He had to go back and forth to surgery. And I remember they were just talking about how he might lose his leg.
After the leg swelling was better controlled, he had to have those wounds reclosed. So he ended up with a couple of trips back to the operating room to complete the repair of the leg.
After 8 days in a coma, after 5 operations, after losing almost half the blood in his body, Officer Mike Madlin wakes up.
You hear all the medical machines beeping, and I just felt like I was being gagged, but it was the actual breathing tube that was helping me breathe. I actually was able to free one of my hands and actually rip the breathing tube out.
His family, his fellow officers, and all of Las Vegas breathe a sigh of relief.
I spent every day after the shooting down there. I was with his wife, his little ones, his family.
Mike remains in intensive care. And then something no one saw coming.
The nurses were giving me a bath.
Oh, that feels weird.
I just felt like a warm feeling on my backside, like almost like I was a child and I had wet myself.
The repair to his artery has burst.
He's had an arterial repair and now he's got this bleeding from the site. There isn't any diagnosis workup. We just need to find out where the leak is.
If surgeons don't find that leak, Mike Madlin could lose his leg, or worse.
You can bleed to death from that just as well as the initial injury.
At UMC, the repair to Officer Mike Madlin's gunshot wound has burst. Doctors perform an emergency bypass, rerouting the blood from his femoral artery. Then they use a graft from another leg vein to repair it.
That was probably the scariest moment, because we'd already gone through all these procedures and the happiness of being reunited with your family, and to lose it now would just be a travesty.
We thought we lost you there for a minute.
The second repair holds. Mike recovers, but faces months of rehab, including relearning to walk.
I just wanted to go back to work. That's the question that I posed to all the surgeons and doctors that came in and saw me, and everyone's telling me, I don't know, I don't know.
Mike is awarded the Purple Heart for being wounded in the line of duty. 11 months after the shooting, he gets his wish and returns to the Las Vegas police force.
This was the defining moment. Just a regular work day, but that was special to me.
He was motivated to return to what he did and what he loves to do. That's what I love to do, is make people like him be able to go back to doing what they like to do.
I definitely think that the hands of God were on the medical staff and everyone that had a hand in taking care of me that night.
You know, he's our miracle. Just made us stronger as a family after all this.
There's more to Las Vegas than gambling and nightlife. Outside the Strip, people take to the mountains for the thrill of ziplining across Bootleg Canyon.
Zip lines were on top of the mountain, which looked over the entire city. It was very pretty.
People also like a good adrenaline rush while they're in Vegas, and we were definitely there for that.
26-year-old Kevin Johnson and his best buddy Chris Dunkel left California and headed to Sin City to work as zipline guides.
It just sounded like a really good idea to go, and we were young and had a lot of life in front of us.
It's a dream job for two single guys.
I think it was fun in a lot of ways because of all the people you were able to socialize with. People go there for vacation and they want to go all out and party.
Zipline by day, promote the business, and party by night.
We went to a lot of the hotels, we went to a lot of the pools. Some of the customers would give their hotel cards to us.
We would also tell them about, hey, we work at this great zip line.
Yeah, there were a lot of girls, but, you know, we were just young and single, and we just had a lot of good times.
This fall morning is no exception. The guys start the day on a routine shift, running tourists across the canyon.
Yeah!
A lot of people were scared when they went up. They're paying a good amount of money, so while you're ziplining, you want to keep them entertained, and there's a lot of things you got to put into it.
Yeah, dude.
Chris guides the first group.
Yeah, Viva!
When I was getting off the zip line, we were walking up to the next launch with our group, and Kevin and the other guide were coming in. No one really saw what happened. We looked back, and Kevin's feet were kind of brushing off the edge of the deck. And at that point, we noticed he wasn't clipped in.
It's a nightmarish sight. Holding on only with his hands, Kevin dangles 80 feet above the canyon floor.
He was rolling back out on the line, and Kevin's just standing up there with his arms completely hanging.
Chris and the others desperately try to pull him back in.
So we have these long sticks which you would use to clean pools with. So one of the guys grabbed one of those and did this long reach for him, and Kevin had his feet out and he just barely touched it with his toes.
And then, the unthinkable.
I saw him just drop.
"20 miles from the Vegas Strip, a scene of horror. Zipline guide Kevin Johnson dangles unclipped 80 feet above Bootleg Canyon.
And he was actually smiling, but I think it was the fact that he realized, I'm screwed. And that was really hard to watch. I thought he was dead. Well, at first, it was all reaction. It was very steep, and there's a lot of rocks.
Kevin!
We got down there super fast. I've done tons and tons of first aid classes and never really had to do anything. But we rolled him over and he wasn't breathing. He had this giant gash on his head, and I swabbed him out and took this huge gasp of air. And he's like he just came to. So one of the other guys goes up and gets cell reception and calls 911.
911, police, fire, medical.
Copy, Mercy 7 out.
An air ambulance lifts off from Las Vegas.
As soon as something comes down, we immediately change our mode from eating lunch and watching TV to, okay, time to go to work.
I was holding one hand. He wasn't awake or anything like that. He was just breathing really hard, but sometimes his breath would go out. I'd scream and try to wake him up a little.
The crowd above watches helplessly until one woman answers his screams.
She said, I'm a nurse, I can help. And so they flew her down the zip line, they got her off, and she walked down, and she brought first aid kit.
What's his name? It's Kevin.
I remember telling her, I can't feel my leg, because I was pinned between a rock and Kevin's head, and I was kind of holding up his body as straight as possible. So she says, you should talk to him, because he can hear you, and when you hear him stop breathing, that was really hard.
All right, Kevin, stay with us, stay with us.
She finally took hold of his head, and I was able to get up, and then I called Kevin's mom. I'm surprised I even had her number.
It was Chris. He said, Margaret, Kevin fell. You need to come to Vegas right away. And it just didn't register. It didn't make sense. We're trying to get the paramedics here. And he goes, I gotta go. Then I started to shake.
7 minutes later, they arrive at Bootleg Canyon.
Located the patient almost immediately.
There! Hey!
With every minute that passes, Kevin's chances of survival go down.
Couple orbits looking around for a good place for us to land the helicopter. With a little bit of maneuvering, we were able to land as close to the patient as we could possibly get.
24 minutes after the 911 call, paramedics finally get to Kevin, but it may be too late.
There was no other neurological response, so he wasn't following commands. So at that point, we knew that there was probably a head injury.
Pretty good chest.
He had open fractures on his lower legs. His tib, fib, the two lower bones of your leg had penetrated through his boots. Basically cut his shoes in half.
Thank you very much. Hold on to that.
They put all these pads on him, and they all came off because there's blood everywhere.
All right, I'll go ahead and start a line for you right now.
We were focused on the priority, which was maintaining his airway, keeping his airway open.
All right, I'll put a tourniquet around your arm, poke your arm, okay? I'll give you an IV.
We knew we were going to have a rough time with him. He wasn't breathing effectively, but we knew that we just needed to secure him, make sure that he was safe, and get him back to the helicopter.
3, roll.
It is traumatic and it does affect you. But during the call, you just got to be professional.
1, 2, 3, up.
Now, they have to carry a severely injured 180-pound young man down a rocky slope in 85-degree heat.
That costs us time.
Precious time they don't have because he's struggling to breathe.
Nothing.
Open your eyes.
Anytime somebody has to be intubated, you know they're in a really bad shape.
Yeah. All right, we're in. Good to go.
See Trauma Mercy 7. Trauma Mercy 7, we're at the facility, about 7 minutes out. Coming from the Boulder City zipline, we've got a 20-year-old male.
It's a 7-minute journey to University Medical Center in Las Vegas. Trauma surgeon Dr. Michael Casey and his team are standing by.
80-foot fall is a pretty significant distance. You reach 50 and 100 feet, it's usually considered a pretty serious injury.
Kevin is a full trauma case, which means everyone, specialists, anesthesia, the OR, everyone responds to the call. But it may already be too late.
You increase the death rate if you don't treat them within the first hour. That's why trauma's called it the golden hour. Like Kevin was in the field for 2 hours. His golden hour is gone.
Kevin is dying before their eyes.
Unequal breath sounds.
He had a lot of things going on. His lung had collapsed on one side. We had to put a tube in to reinflate his lung.
Kevin landed feet first. His legs are almost unrecognizable.
Okay, he was bleeding from his lower extremities pretty badly. His one leg was nearly cut off. The bones were out, the muscles were cut. It was just hung on by a piece of skin. The other leg, when I took his boot off, bones fell out of his shoe.
And there are other injuries they can't see.
There's always a fear that someone falls a distance, they break their neck, they break their spine, and they become a paraplegic or a quadriplegic.
Although there are multiple breaks and fractures throughout Kevin's body, miraculously, his spine is intact.
If he'd landed flat on his back, those rocks would have penetrated his chest and probably killed him. But the fact that he landed on kind of his feet, ankles, and butt kind of decreased the energy away from the rest of the body.
Still, the scan shows a multitude of injuries.
The injuries he's dying from in front of us were the bleeding from his limbs and the bleeding from his abdomen.
There's only one option: surgery.
As a trauma surgeon, my job is to stop the bleeding. We had to take him to the OR to take out his spleen, fix the bleeding in different places.
Orthopedic surgeon Dr. Eugene Libby is standing by.
Kevin Johnson was one of the more severe cases of open trauma to both lower extremities that I've seen in my career. His chances of survival were slim.
In Las Vegas, trauma doctors are fighting to save Kevin Johnson's life. He fell 80 feet from a zip line.
The bandages were soaked with blood. Really had a hard time making heads or tails of his anatomy. It just looked like a ground hamburger. I knew I was going to be dealing with some massive problems in his legs.
Dr. Libby spends 2 hours trying to stop the bleeding and put Kevin's legs back together again.
I washed out his right leg wounds, closed them, and then put the provisional external fixator on his right leg. It's mainly to hold basic alignment. You're basically trying to make something that's a leg look like a leg instead of a pile of jello.
Clamp, please.
Dr. Libby thinks Kevin's right leg has a good chance of recovering. His left leg, a different story.
The artery, nerve, and vein from his distal leg down through his ankle and foot was not only lacerated into 2 different pieces, but it was shredded. I did not want to amputate the young man's leg right at that time. You know, as anything, we all feel horrible. I wanted to get other consultations with fellow physicians for them to put in their opinion.
But Kevin's problems don't end there. He has a bleed on his brain. The pressure inside his skull is building, which could kill him. They put him into a coma and take him to the ICU.
We put in a device called an intracranial pressure monitor. So I did it right there in the intensive care unit. It involves making a little tiny incision in the skull, drill a hole through the skull with a hand drill, very similar to what you might find at the hardware store. And then through that device, we pass that little tiny fiber optic lead. And the other end gets hooked into the machine, the monitor, and we can see what the pressure is.
After 5 hours of surgery, doctors finally talked to Kevin's family and friends.
They said, we don't know if he's gonna live or he's gonna die.
They just kept saying, he's very, very sick. And I thought, sick's an illness. He's mangled, he's torn up, he's a mess. I would not allow myself to think he was gonna die.
Kevin's progress is slow. It's not a good sign. Dr. Libby makes a bold decision.
He's had massive head injuries, abdominal injuries, pelvic bleeding, transfusions. We know as physicians that down the road it's going to take a lot of energy to heal his body overall, and it will take a lot of energy to heal his left leg if we were able to salvage it. And so I took him back to surgery and amputated his left leg.
I mean, it's such a helpless feeling. We weren't doctors, and we had to, all of our trust was in their hands.
Those of us that were there kind of clung onto each other, and we got through that day. And then came the next day, and the next day.
The surgery pays off. Kevin's body is now healing faster, and the swelling in his brain has stopped. But he remains in a coma.
I just kept rubbing Kevin's arm and his head and talking to him like we were, you know, we're all here. We're all with you.
I sincerely believe patients hear us. I think they don't process and don't have memories, but I think that we still have to talk to them. And I think people, even in a coma, need to be talked to.
A person's level of anxiety can contribute to his ability to resist.
Maybe all that talking paid off, because one day, after 3 weeks in a coma, Kevin opens his eyes.
He's opening his eyes. Kevin?
And we all were like, oh my God, he's alive. He's alive, he's under there.
Take your time, take your time.
That was kind of the beginning of his awakening. Every day, a little bit more.
Okay.
Kevin.
I was just thinking, oh, wow, this is a crazy dream. I gotta get out of here.
It's your dad. It's your
After
dad.
5 weeks at UMC, Kevin is transferred to a rehab center in San Diego. There, he becomes aware of the full extent of his injuries. He has a long road of recovery ahead.
I knew how severe it was, but I knew that I was going to be okay. I just instilled that in my mind. I'm going to be fine.
Kevin's right leg is still the most severely injured. Over the next year, he fights to keep it, but infections and more surgery in the future bring him to a turning point. He decides to amputate his one remaining leg. It's a courageous decision.
Once I amputated the leg, I felt tremendously better. I was really able to recover from my injury and begin, because that was able to get me more active. I changed my diet, I changed everything, and I'm even healthier than I was before my injury. I definitely know that.
It's a miraculous story of survival and determination. A story he's compelled to share.
I could use this injury as a crutch for the rest of my life and sit around and collect disability and play video games or something like that, but that was never me in the first place.
Kevin now reaches out to other amputees to let them know there is hope.
Let me say, it feels great to be walking up here because this is something very new for me. when I could really grasp hope and see it in other people's eyes, that's one of the most powerful feelings.
When things like this happen, you never know how you're going to react, and you just keep moving forward. We have our son, and he's a bigger, better version. Yeah, he's amazing.
There's not enough things that I will ever be able to say to the people that helped save me, from the paramedics to the nurses, doctors, family. I love all of them for what they've done.